Welcome to another CED webinar. My name is Leif Wickman, and today I'll be joined by Justin Welty. We're going to demonstrate how you can enter data into the Conservation Efforts database using our batch upload process. If you have any questions, we ask that you hold them until the end of the presentation, and we can go back to any step or slide that you may have questions about. Before we walk through this process, let's take a moment to explain the options that we have for data entry, the types or categories of information you may have, and then we'll move on to the batch upload process.
We have two methods for data entry. One is single record. That's using the CED's user interface to enter each record one by one. We also have a batch upload template, which allows you to enter many records in an easier fashion. Each has unique advantages, and the method you choose should largely depend on the amount of data you have to enter and whether you have an existing database that can be used to populate the batch upload template. While there are no restrictions to using either method, we encourage users with more than 100 records to consider using the batch upload method, as it may save you some time. Single record entry allows the user to easily navigate through each record and can be a time saver if you do not have a lot of spatial entries. Speaking of spatial entries, we categorize conservation efforts into three categories: spatial activities, non-spatial activities, and non-spatial plans. The first part of those labels are to let the user know whether the CED will require spatially explicit data or spatially aggregated in case of private lands. Non-spatial is actually more like semi-spatial in that the CED will still collect some course level information about your geographic location, like the state, but won't ask for spatially explicit polygons. Non-spatial plans are just that, the category in which the CED collects information on plans and strategies. These documents often direct conservation, but are not the type of boots-on-the-ground activities or treatments that the CED is focused on collecting. Lastly, you'll see that we break apart public and private lands. On public lands, we're asking for spatially explicit information for applicable subactivities, while understanding that we need to protect private landowner information and location. Therefore, we're currently working with the USGS and states to utilize a reporting unit that is large enough to obscure and protect those landowner locations while being small enough to be biologically meaningful and useful. As you can see on the slide, those units are still in development, and we will provide a separate training on how to upload data using those reporting units as soon as they're available.
All right, thanks, Leif. As he said, my name is Justin Welty, and today I'll be walking you through the batch upload data entry process. For the most part, I'm going to be focusing on the spatial activities and subactivities, but I will also be touching on the non-spatial activities as well as the non-spatial plans. We're going to be doing this for the public landowner information. Private landowner information is still being developed, and we will share that with you in a later webinar. So we wanted to first start talking about when to use the batch upload for the Conservation Efforts database. We recommend using the batch upload if you have at least 100 or more records to enter. Otherwise, the single record entry may be more beneficial and efficient for you. The process starts by downloading the batch upload template. If you would like to get a copy of the batch upload, please contact the CED team directly, and you will soon be able to access this batch upload template from the CED website when we are able to fully publish it. We strongly encourage you to read the user manual. This manual has a lot of information as well as pictures and guides helping you through the batch upload information process. And many of the questions you may have will be answered within the user manual. We also encourage you to utilize the CED help tables and other CED information to familiarize yourself with all of the CED fields, those fields that are required, as well as the CED field domain values. Doing your homework first will allow you to more quickly crosswalk your data into the CED data fields, as well as reduce your data error. Once you've done all this background homework information, it's time to start preparing your data for entry into the CED batch upload. Here I just wanted to quickly show you the Conservation Efforts Database Batch Upload Template User Manual for version 2.1. Again, this is a document that will be refined with use over time as we get user feedback. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Please read the user manual. We have a table of content section that will allow you to navigate anywhere you want within the document to find the specific answers you are looking for. Now let's talk about a couple of the specifications required to run the batch upload template. First of all, ArcGIS is required, and this includes ArcMap 10.6 or ArcPro 2.0 or higher. You will need knowledge of ArcGIS, ArcGIS Maps, and ArcGIS tools in order to be able to utilize all the features within the batch upload template. If you do have questions or issues when you're using the batch upload template, we encourage you to contact us, and we will work with you to address any problems that you may have. Now, let's move on to the batch upload data entry process itself. We're going to start with the batch upload data structure. The file geodatabase in which the batch upload is stored consists of multiple parent and child tables. The parent tables can be thought of as the master tables, and they exist for the spatial projects, the non-spatial projects, and the non-spatial plans. So it's important to identify which of your efforts belong to each of the parent tables so they can be properly uploaded when it's time to do data entry. Each of the parent tables has multiple child tables that are associated with them. These child tables generally involve a one-to-many relationship where multiple features, such as counties, may need to be associated with a single feature, such as a project effort. The CED user guide and ArcGIS tools embedded within the batch upload will help you identify the required fields within the child tables so that you are not making guesses or assumptions about what is required and what is not. Finally, there is an ArcGIS batch upload toolbox associated with the CED batch upload. This toolbox contains 3 tools to help you through the data entry process. We will go into these tools in more detail later on during this presentation. Here we see an example of the batch upload template being displayed in ArcCatalog for simplicity's sake. You can see there are many different types of features, some of which you will use, some of which are there merely to help organize the data. You can see they are all labeled. So for example, this first feature is CED1 Batch Template Spatial Projects. So all CED efforts associated with spatial projects will begin with the CED1 name. CED2 is associated with the non-spatial projects, and CED3 is associated with non-spatial plans. The symbols will help you determine what information you are looking at. There is only one polygon feature in the CED batch upload template. This is for the spatial projects. Everything else consists of tables, which are symbolized by the little table symbol, as well as relational database symbols. These are features you do not need to worry about. They simply help relate the child tables to the parent tables within the CED. If I scroll down, you can see at the bottom, we have a final table called the CED error log. When you run one of the CED tools, this table will be populated with any errors or warnings that you might discover during the error check process. Now I'm going to switch over to ArcPro to show you the CED toolbox. As you can see, there are 3 tools. create all required records, run the full CED error check, and update child table project names. Each of these come with minimal help documentation as well as other information that can help you run the tool. However, these tools are relatively simple and can be run with minimal ArcGIS experience. Now that we've looked at some of the structure and basics of the CED, let's begin to look at how we can get data into the CED batch upload template. The process starts by uploading data to the parent tables that we talked about earlier. You can do this in one of two ways. First, you can append your data to the appropriate CED parent table. This can be done using ArcGIS's Append Data tool. Any fields that you want to append using the Append Data tool can be crosswalked into the CED batch upload, but the domains must match. Therefore, uploading, for example, a project name might be easy as there's no domain field, but uploading the project activity and subactivity may be more difficult because those domains must match exactly or the crosswalk will not occur properly. The other option for entering data into the batch upload template is to manually digitize your spatial boundaries and then manually enter the data. This is for the spatial data only. For non-spatial projects and non-spatial plans, you can simply manually enter the data. After you've completed the parent tables, you will want to begin working on the child tables. However, it is important to complete all of the data in the parent tables first, particularly when it's asked for number of child records, for example, number of counties, number of documents, number of objectives, as these numbers will play a key role in facilitating step 2 of the data entry, the child tables. Now let's take a little bit of time and go back to our ArcPro document and look at how we can enter data into one of these CED parent tables. Here you see our CED 2X batch template dated 23 October 2018. This is an ArcPro project that comes with the CED batch upload template. It has all the tables that you need pre-installed on the table of contents, as well as other information that may be useful, such as the toolbox, which can be found in the Catalog tab, and then the CED Batch Upload Toolset, CED version 2X, 23 October 2018. To enter data for spatial projects, you can use the Spatial CED1 Batch Template Spatial Projects feature class. To do an append data, you can simply search for the append tool and use the tool as you would any other traditional append. Again, remember when you're adding data this way, it's important to match those schemas from the target dataset to the parent dataset. For simplicity's sake, in this version, I'm going to simply digitize a boundary manually. And I can do that using the Edit tab within ArcPro. Now, a point of note, all of this can be done in ArcMap and ArcCatalog as well. However, most of these tools were designed to work better in ArcPro. So if you're using ArcMap, you do so at your own risk and with your own knowledge. So let's create a new feature for our spatial projects. You can see I have the table for the spatial projects parent table open here, as well as the map on which I can draw. I can create a boundary, and it even lets me select what I want to create. So let's do one for sagebrush protection. And I'm going to create a polygon from that. And once I've done that, I can begin to draw my polygon. Now, obviously, I am zoomed very far out. You have the options of zooming in and using whatever other layers or background layers you have available to you to draw this boundary. Once I finish my boundary, I can double click, and you can see it adds a new row here within my table. It's important to remember, particularly when using ArcPro, to save your features frequently, just in case the data is lost. So I'm going to save my edits to my polygon, and now I can begin to enter the information. We can enter a project name, and you can enter an effort status. Is it in progress or completed? As you will see, many of the fields within the CED batch upload template have these domain or drop-down lists which limit your selection. This is critical to ensuring proper data entry, and we want everyone to follow these fields when doing so. Now you've already seen, because I digitized this on screen, it's filled in sagebrush protection as my activity level. So let's move on to the sub-activity. We're going to call this a field break. And then it has specific questions that may or may not be required depending on your situation. If you don't believe your particular field, such as post-fire, is not required for your particular sub-activity, you can choose not to fill it in. The error check will catch this, and if it is required, it will warn you that the data need to be completed. I know that for this particular sub-activity, post-fire and seeding type are not required, so I will skip them. We're going to request a start date and an end date. The CED error check again checks to make sure dates are compliant with what you're entering so that we can't have mixed up dates or anything like that. So we'll put in a couple of quick dates here. As we scroll along, you can see it's asking how many acres. We can put in a value. Next, we need to allow the GIS to calculate the acres for our particular feature as well. We can do this using calculate field, select GIS acres as our field name, make sure it's running to the correct input table, and use the code to calculate acres. And we can run this code. And you can see I drew a relatively large polygon within this area, far more than the 2,000 acres that I put here. Therefore, I'm going to want to adjust my metric value or adjust my polygon. The CED batch upload template, like the CED website, will automatically flag projects whose reported metric value and whose GIS acres are too far apart. However, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to leave this incorrect so you can see what it will do in the error check. Moving down the line, we will fill in our effectiveness status. As part of the batch upload CED, we want to know whether your effort was effective. We will say, yes, this was effective. Continuing on, we're going to include the implementing party who did this, the field office that was involved. This may take a little bit of searching, as all the field offices have to be incorporated into this at once. Who created it? And here are the critical fields for these child tables that I was talking about. We want to know how many objectives you're going to select for this particular effort. How many methods are you going to select? How many effectiveness statements are you going to select? For definitions on all these fields, we encourage you to consult both the user guide as well as the CED help documentation. Moving along, we can see number of documents attached, number of collaborators involved, number of land ownership, number of threats addressed. I'm putting 2 for most of these. You will need to put the number that actually represent how many you're going to be uploading. Finally, there's a notes field that you can enter as well. That's for the spatial projects. I also want to quickly demonstrate a non-spatial project. That's the CED Batch 2 template. There is no GIS involved in this. This is a non-spatial project. We're going to open it up. And again, you can see a very similar set of fields, now just without the spatial component. The non-spatial plans have even fewer fields. And again, familiarizing yourself with the data will help you to identify which of these fields are required and which are optional. So to create a record in a non-spatial table, we simply click to add that new row, give it another name, and again, fill in the data. In this case, the activity is not going to be filled in for you. You're going to have to select the activity that you're focused on, and from there, you can select your sub-activity. These sub-activities will subset based on your activity selection. So let's select power line burial. In that case, we are going to need to fill in the field type of power line. And again, we will work through the start date, end date, and all of the metrics, as well as all of the offices, the created by, and the numbers. To demonstrate the error check later in this process, I'm going to leave these fields intentionally blank so that you can better see how the error check works. For now, let's save our work and move on to step 2, the child data entry process. To populate the child tables of each of the 3 CED effort types, we ask that you run the Create All Required Records tool that comes with your batch upload. Please do not try to enter these records manually. The tool will automatically populate all of the fields that you need and all the fields that are required. Therefore, you are not needlessly and inefficiently populating fields that we do not need for our records. Once this tool has been run, you need to go in and manually enter the values in the appropriate child tables. We discourage you from using ArcGIS's append tool here and would like you to work manually to enter the data. If this is a problem or you have many records that can be crosswalked without the use of the append tool, please contact us. We may be able to work with you to get these data into these child tables more efficiently. Now let's move on to a demonstration of this Create All Required Records tool, as well as how to properly fill in the data. Again, I'm going to be using Arc Pro as my demonstration here. I'm going to go to the Catalog tab, and I've already pulled up my toolbox. Remember, this is a toolbox that comes with the batch upload template, and we're going to do the Create All Required Records tool. This tool, like all the other tools, asks for only one input, and that is the CED file geodatabase. You cannot drag and drop from the contents over here. We need to navigate to where that is stored. On my computer, that is in Documents, and CED Batch Upload Tools, and there is my CED 2X Batch Template 23 October 2018. Click on it to highlight it and say OK. If you do not select the proper geodatabase, the tool will fail to run and you will receive an error warning immediately. As soon as I tried to run the tool, I received an error. If you read the error carefully, you may be able to identify the source of what is going on. And we can see that a table is still being edited in our ArcMap document. ArcPro is extremely careful about running tools while tables are still in editing. And if that is the case, you need to return to your map. And you can see the little save icon here is lit up. That means that a table is in edit mode and it's still more work needs to be done. So I will save that table. Now it has been grayed out, indicating the table is no longer being edited, and I can run the tool. You can read multiple error warnings and other messages as the tool is being run. You can see that it found documents. It's creating 2 records. And continues to run and provide messages and output on how many records it's creating, what it's found, and what it's doing. This may help give you an idea of what you're dealing with when you run these tools. One of the benefits of running this tool in particular is you can run it as many times as is necessary. You may see here multiple records are being returned with 0. What this means is that it already identified the number of child records that need to be created, realize that those records were already there and is not recreating them. This helps avoid duplication of data. If you decide you have too many records in a child table, simply go to the parent table, reduce the number of records you want to create, and then go into your child table and delete the extra record. Our script is finished, so now we can begin to go look at some of the child tables. You will see child tables that represent different parts of the CED upload process. These will be similar to different sections within the single record data entry. For example, if we go to the Spatial Project Collaborators table and open that up, you can see here's my new project. It matched Spatial Project ID 7, so it grabbed this object ID. Our new record was object ID 7, and our project was new name, and put these both into the table to help you identify what records you're filling in. So while there may be multiple records here, there's only one field that you have to fill out. And this is true for almost all the child records. There's only one field, maybe 2 or 3 that are going to have to fill out for each one. So this is not a monumental task. You can go in and fill out these fields, save your data, and continue on. You can do this for the documentation as well as any other fields where data is required. It is recommended that you open up each of the tables as you run the Create All Records tool to see which fields are required and which are not. If, for example, you do not see a new empty slot here in the documentation table, that means you listed 0 documents that were going to be uploaded. For other tables, if you do not see the information here, it simply means that that information is not required for a particular record. Now, for those of you who have never uploaded documents within ArcGIS or ArcPro, let's go over a couple of the steps involved here. So first, we're going to specify the document type. We'll call this a project proposal, as well as give it a name. This can assist you if you need to reference the document later while it's online. To attach the document, simply come over here to the little editing bar and right-click on it. And now you can see a little section that says Manage Attachments. These document tables have been set up specifically to allow the attachment of documents to them. So all your documents can be embedded right within the spatial template. Once we have attachments, we're going to add the attachment, and we're going to select any document that we want, whether it is a Word, PDF, Excel spreadsheet, or anything else. However, we highly encourage users to upload only PDF documentation, as it is more secure and harder to edit. Once it's been uploaded, you can see it here, you can highlight it, and you can actually open it, you can delete it, or anything else you need to do to it. While it is possible to attach more than one document to each of these attachment sections, we ask that only one document be attached to each of these for the CED purposes. That way, the information is not lost or multiplied, or you have multiple documents clogging up the system. Now, you may have noticed that my document type and document name disappeared. There are some bugs in ArcPro that definitely need to be worked out. If you notice this, please go in and fill it out again. And again, remember the importance of saving your data so that situations like this do not happen and information is not lost. Again, you can continue to work your way down the list as you're going through the different tables. So let's jump to the objectives. We specified 2 objectives. Again, you see this information comes through. And now it specifies the subactivity for the objectives table. This is because there are specific objectives that go with specific subactivities. In cases like this, you will see that subactivity come through as well, and this again will help you to better identify which record you are working with. Again, these fields subset themselves so that only the information you are interested in selecting is provided to you. So let's select one objective, and again, obviously we want to select different objectives. If we have two objectives, we need to know what they are and we need to be able to select them. Selecting the same objective twice will trigger an error. So after we've made our selections, let's save our data. And now let's go back to the slideshow. We'll work through a couple of the other tools within the CED. The next tool I want to introduce you to is the Update Child Table Project Names tool. It's a long name, but it has an important function. So as we talked about before, when filling out the child tables, each effort in that CED batch upload parent table will have an object ID and a project name field. These fields are transferred to the child tables to aid in the data completion process. However, the project name field is free text and can be changed in the parent table if you realize you misspelled the name or you put the wrong name into the field. If you do change the name in the parent table, we will need to run a cascade of updates that will update that name in all of the subsequent child tables to make sure we have appropriate connections and that you are filling in the appropriate data. So let's quickly demonstrate how this tool will work. So just like our Create All Required Records tool, this tool also only requires the geodatabase to work. However, you only need to run this tool if you do a name change. So let's change the name of this. We'll change it from old name to new name, and we need to do that in the parent table. We should not be editing names in the child table. So we'll close out some of these tables as I have made a mess of things. And we're going to change it from new name to old name, just so you can see how the naming process works. So again, we need to make sure we're saving our edits before we run any of the tools. And we'll go select that geodatabase again. And now ArcPro is going to have to remember where I was. So I'm going to select that database. And I'm going to clear my selection, because if you remember, if you have a row highlighted, ArcGIS will often only run tools on that one row. Let's run the tool. And again, it's going to tell you how the tool is progressing. It's looking through the parent tables, looking for names that don't match up, and updating all the way through. It's a relatively quick tool. You can see that it's finished. So now if we ran it right, we should be able to go back to our objectives table, for example. Now this name has changed. If you update the subactivity as well, the subactivity will also change, causing a cascade change, which will in fact force you to change the objectives and anything else associated with that particular record. Now let's go back and talk about how we run the error check in the Conservation Efforts database. At this point, all your data should have been entered into the Conservation Efforts database batch upload template. All the spatial projects, non-spatial projects, and non-spatial plans should have all of their information fully entered, including all of the parent and child records, all documents attached, and all fields completed. However, we realize that it can be difficult to ensure that everything is completed appropriately when working with large amounts of data such as this. So we installed this error check to help you look for required fields, missing fields, and anything else that we can easily check to help ensure proper data quality. The error check can be run at any time throughout the data entry effort, but it must be run when data entry is complete. In fact, I recommend running the error check throughout the process, especially at the beginning, so you can begin to learn what errors we are seeing and the error checker is catching, and then you can fix these later on in the process so they don't present so many errors and so many headaches later on. When your data entry is complete and you ship the information to the CED team, we will run the error check ourselves, the very same one that you are running. And if we identify errors within the dataset, we will return the dataset to you in order so that those errors can be corrected. As I stated before, any of those errors or warnings that are generated are stored in the CED error log table. This table includes a resolve field, which allows you to essentially check off each error as you complete it so that you know that the issue has been resolved. Now let's go to the demo of the CED error check. So we're back in our catalog tab here in Arc Pro, and I'm going to open the full CED error check. As you can see, like the other tools, it simply requires that geodatabase once again. We're going to open up, select our geodatabase, and then run the tool. Errors and warnings are going to be presented in light green for warnings, and it tells you that right here. It's going to walk you through the process. Errors will be presented below in red. These will also be transferred to the table, so you can see them in both places. This process takes a little bit of time because it's going to first start by trying to create any child records that do not currently exist. Once it's done with that, it's going to be looking for empty fields as well as missing fields or fields that were filled in incorrectly. We're going to fast forward a little bit here and wait till the end of the error check, as the process can take a bit of time, so please be patient with it. Now that the error check is complete, we can use this reporting window to get a brief overview of what went wrong. So it tells us as a warning that the error check is complete, and we identified 54 errors and 2 warnings. This is not surprising considering how many fields I have left blank. It also tells you to ignore the failed to execute message below. This is right here. Anytime these tools generate a warning, it is going to generate the failed to execute tool. If it says completed script run full CED error check at the bottom and shows you this message here, the tool completed successfully, it just found errors that need to be resolved. If we scroll up, we can start to see some of these errors. Errors are highlighted in red. They will tell you the table, CED2, child table, non-spatial project effectiveness statement. The effectiveness statement is required for object ID 7. So it's telling us that we did not put in an effectiveness statement for object ID 7. Again, this information will also be present on the output table. You're welcome to look through this output field to see which information you might be missing, particularly if it's 1 or 2 records. However, if it's many records, we encourage you to go to the CED error log located at the bottom of the table of contents, and we can open that up. When we open up the CED error log, and I'm going to expand this so you get a better view, again, you can see the table where the error occurred. You can see the object ID associated with that error. It gives you the project name, and it tells you a warning or an error. In this case, the acres are off in this instance. Remember, we left some of those acres misaligned. It's telling us they're off for these tables. It gives you a parent object ID. Now, this is for child tables only. This tells you who the parent record is associated with. Gives you a parent global ID, again, for matching purposes. Again, this is only for child records. And then this field at the end is what I've mentioned before. This is a resolve field. As you go through each one of these errors, you can change the resolve from no to yes. This helps you better keep track of the errors in the CED and whether you resolve them or not. Once you have gone through and corrected all the errors in the CED, run the error check again to make sure nothing else has been missed or introduced. This table will be erased and replaced with a brand new error check table. That is it for the error check part of the CED batch upload demonstration. Let's return to the PowerPoint and wrap up what we've learned. So we walked through some of the basic steps of uploading data into the parent tables, creating and entering data into the child records, and running the error check on your CED batch upload. Once that process is complete, the next step is to send us the data at the CED team. Our team will work with you to identify the best place to send the data. We will check that data for errors, and if we find any, again, we will return the data to you to complete and fix any errors unless the errors are minimal. And then we will upload that data onto the CED site. Once data upload is complete, approving officials will still need to log on to the CED site and approve their batch records. This process is still pending and being developed, and we will host another webinar later in the year on how to complete this process. For more information, or if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, we encourage you to visit us at conservationefforts.org. Thank you for your time.